exploding and coming to the ground 110 stories.
In front of our eyes.
Obviously, our thoughts are exploding and coming to the ground 110 stories.
In front of our eyes.
Obviously, our thoughts are that
with the people who may have been inside at the time this happened, and how and who and why.
Absolute devastation. You're looking at a live picture of Lower Manhattan here.
The landscape just completely
vanished.
Gone.
Oh.
And what a beautiful, clear, incredible day this started out as. And it has turned into a day of just complete devastation.
And of course, Lynn, a lot of people living in the surrounding boroughs, I'm sure because it is such a clear day, can stand outside
and see it
and see what's unfolding before our very eyes as the two of us are watching this.
And everyone with us here in the studio, it's just incredulous because no one would imagine that this could happen anywhere, let alone here in New York City. We're also being told that, again, at this point, most public places of transportation have been shut down. All airports shut down. Penn Station shut down.
Also, other government institutions, including the Treasury and the State Department, are being evacuated in Washington, D.C. Paul Begala, according to the AP, a Democratic consultant, said he witnessed an explosion near the Pentagon. He described it as a huge fireball, a huge orange fireball. He said another witness told him that a helicopter exploded. We are going to go once again
to the explosion that just occurred. And this, again, is the first tower of the World Trade Center, Twin Towers. It's folding before your eyes.
We first reported to you that there were reports of a first plane that may have been hijacked from Boston. Now we're hearing that that second plane may have. These are reports now. This is unconfirmed, that this report is saying that the second plane may have come from Newark Airport. And as a result of that second plane, there was sort of wow, look at that close-up shot to the utter chaos that is kind of on the ground here.
Unbelievable. Then that's the first shot we've been able to get close to the scene on the ground. You can see complete chaos. We've got right now Jeremy Fox on the line. He is an eyewitness. He lives in the vicinity. Jeremy, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Tell me what you're seeing right now.
Everything is white outside my window. What happened, I saw the second building below, and it just crumbled down, and I saw the core of the building slowly crush to the ground, fall to the ground. Out my window now, I can see nothing. Everything is white. What I saw before was people running in front of the hospital, running all over on the streets, running away from the west side, because I live on the east side, close to the FDR. Everything outside is pure white. You can't see a thing. I live across the yard from me, about 100 yards, is another building. I can't see 2 feet in front of me. I had to close my windows because it's so smoky down here.
What are the people around you saying? What's the reaction around you in that neighborhood?
Pure horror, it seems like. It seems like people are running away for their lives, like they don't know what's going on. Pure confusion. I myself, I don't know. I live so close. I'm like, I can't imagine what just happened. I'm like,
where do you live, Jeremy, for the folks who are just tuning in?
I live on Gold Street, right across from the Beekman Hospital, where they're taking all the patients.
Jeremy,
I saw them bring a lot of patients in before.
Jeremy, obviously, can you please tell us, I mean, we were watching the tower go down. Can you please describe to us, on the ground, what did that look like?
I'm not on the ground. I'm on the 26th floor of a building across the way. Right now, you can see nothing outside. When it went off, the second building, you saw an explosion, and then you just saw a humongous cloud of smoke go up, and you saw the building start to fall down, and then you saw the core of the building just start to disintegrate into itself. There's ashes on my terrace everywhere. You can't see a thing. The smell is horrible. I smell smoke everywhere.
Did it look like an implosion that internally, was it that when the plane crashed, I mean, was there another explosion inside that vicinity of that area, almost like we're speculating here, possibly a bomb?
I couldn't. The second building, both buildings were just burning, and like they constantly burning. And then right below the left building, the one without the news tower, the satellite tower, it just looked like an explosion below the where it was burning, and then it just came down.
All right, Jeremy, you were telling us before that you saw the ambulances going to the hospital. Describe what that was like.
It was horrific. There were men in, they had beds lined up outside the emergency room waiting for patients. They were bringing them in cars, not in ambulances anymore, as well as ambulances. There were people coming in on stretchers. They just looked, shaken and horrible. I mean, I'm on the 26th floor and I looked at it. Now you cannot see 2 inches in front of your face if you're on the street right now. People downstairs must be in pure havoc. I mean, you can't see anything outside.
Jeremy, you must be fearing for your own life at this point. You're so close to it.
I'm very nervous. I'm not happy about, this at all. I'm scared for everyone around and involved. I can't imagine what the destruction that just caused for people. I'm very nervous. Everyone in my family, as you can hear, my phone is ringing, is calling to make sure I'm okay. I'm scared as could be.
You were reporting also that you're not able to get any broadcast. Is that right?
No, I'm getting your broadcast right now. I'm getting the only channel that's not coming in is channel 9. Every other channel is coming in. You're coming in on WB11, and you can see the smoke, and the right building is still burning.
Jeremy, what's the first thing you saw earlier?
The first thing I heard was I felt a boom next to my window, and that woke me up and got me out of bed. Then I I heard ambulances and cars coming, and I went to look out my window, and I was watching and I was on the phone with one of your news staff reporters as the smoke is starting to clear. I'll walk out on my terrace. Hold on. Oh my God, there's debris everywhere. It's horrible. You can't see. There's white powder everywhere. On my terrace, on the ground, everywhere. This is like a war zone, I assume. I've never seen anything like this in my life.
Is it tough for you even to breathe?
Now it is. I'm going back into my apartment.
All right.
Then I was watching, and as I was watching, the plane must have come from the other side because I saw the second building blow. It looked more like an outward explosion because the plane came from the other side, and I saw that pure explosion and took pictures of it. Now there's another.
What was going through your mind while you were doing all of this, Jeremy?
The horror that people are going through right now, the families that are losing people right now, and there's another plane. No, there's a helicopter. The horror that families are going through, that people are going through right now, the confusion, that people don't understand what's going on right now. I don't understand what's going on right now. The insecurity that I feel right now, and that I'm not around my loved ones right now, and how horrible for people who work in the World Trade Center and who have family in the World Trade Center. And I pray to God that they evacuated that building in time to get rid of all those to get those people and save lives. And the massive damage that building falling down must have done to everyone.
I think we're all feeling the same emotions at this point. We're being joined now by Jim Watkins from the Channel 11 News at 10. Jim, were you watching this at home? Was this a shock to you as well when you first got up?
Well, there's a sense that my wife came and woke me up and told me that we were getting a call from our news director saying, this has happened, you must go in. And there's a sense that I'm sure everybody is experiencing, whether they were asleep or whether they were awake when they first heard it, that no, that must be a mistake. That's simply not possible. That's worse than the worst case scenario we'd ever pictured before. So I jumped in a cab. I was coming down Fifth Avenue to our studios here on 42nd Street, and just like you're hearing from everybody else, people are standing out on the street. You can see actually down Fifth Avenue there was a corridor looking straight at the smoking building, and this was before the tower collapsed. People standing there just with mute, dumb expressions on their face.
Incredulous.
They're incredulous. It's almost as if we're living through some sort of a terrible dream here this morning. But
well, we are under attack, and I don't think any of us in our lifetimes have ever witnessed anything quite like this. You read about things like this in other places, but we never think about it happening in our backyard. When it happened in '93, when the World Trade Center came under attack, then we thought, okay, there are a lot of safeguards in place. Right. This can never happen again. And here you're seeing the Pentagon right now. The Pentagon right now, live shot on fire. Horrific sight.
I understand also that perhaps this has been caused by yet another hijacked plane.
Another hijacked plane that's crashed into the Pentagon.
Well.
That's right.
There's so many aspects of this, everyone, that we just don't have any idea about. How are the planes hijacked? What was this? How in the world did control of the planes go to the
Right. But what we're hearing
terrorists?
is since you're just joining us, we're hearing that the first plane was hijacked out of Boston, and that was the first plane that hit the second tower of the World Trade Center. The second plane, we are told, was hijacked out of Newark Airport, and that was the one that we experienced here live. We saw the explosion coming around the back side of the first tower of the World Trade Center and just went through it. And just minutes ago, right here again live, if you were watching, you saw that tower fold, crushed right before our very eyes. And we can only imagine the devastation in the area, the people who may have been trapped in that building and in the second tower that is still standing.
And we should mention also that the towers, of course, are dependent upon one another for their structure. Take a look at the tower collapsing here. This is going to be
just an insidious sight.
Words cannot describe what must be going on the ground below. We don't have any idea yet what the evacuation procedures, what the triage procedures were going on. Perhaps there were people directly below there. You have to think somehow that emergency personnel were organized down below. Of course, all this is going to have to wait till later on. But now the good concern is the second tower going to go down, since the first one is no longer there to support it structurally anymore?
And there are unconfirmed reports that that may be about to happen, and we pray against it, but we will keep watching. The New York Stock Exchange closed. Buildings in the area have been evacuated. All transportation locations, the airports, I would imagine in most of the area, closed down. Penn Station evacuated. We're hearing reports of people, just as you were saying, not knowing what is going on. Many of them have lost their broadcast capacity because some of that comes from the World Trade Centers. Total confusion. What is this? How did it happen? Why did this happen?
Also should mention, Lynn, that the towers or the tunnels and the bridges are closed as well, and I want to tell you, from just having been out there a moment ago, if you're in Manhattan, just don't go outside. No. Don't try to take any kind of a vehicle, any kind of public transportation. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a matter of time before some of the public transportation is grounded as well.
Exactly, and if you're looking at this right now, and if you live in the area, we are being told that you should not go outside, you should not breathe in fumes, because some of these fumes could be noxious. Obviously, that's not what people would first react to, but you have to take care. Right now you're looking at a live shot of the Pentagon burning. Another plane crashed into the Pentagon shortly after the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center came under fire from two what appear to be terrorist plane attacks, planes that were hijacked, one again from Boston Airport, the other from Newark Airport. This is again the live shot of the Pentagon. Back here live to New York City, you're only looking at one remaining tower of the World Trade Center. The first is no longer. It has crashed to the ground. It's collapsed, and now there is fear that the second tower may do the same.
The airlines, the FAA, has issued its first ever in this country national ground stop, meaning all airports are closed. Here's the second plane hitting the second tower.
And it's horrifying. As you watch, it comes right through that tower from the back. And the fiery explosion. And we have no idea how many people were in that building at the time that this happened. No idea how many had been evacuated, no idea what the casualties might be on the ground, but here's the tower once again collapsing, and this happened maybe 15 minutes ago. And there it is, crumbling to the ground. Unbelievable. Now, we had somebody on the phone just recently talking about people being taken to area hospitals, and he was saying it was beyond ambulances at this point. People were being taken in cars to hospitals. So obviously the damage is great. The casualties, many
and of course
there.
Now the problem in lower Manhattan and throughout much of the city is traffic is so terrible. It's going to be very difficult for emergency vehicles and ambulances to do what they have to do. But
and the media being kept away from this, so we can't get too close. Our vantage point is not that great. But we are going to be talking to people who can see this. Again, we were talking to a young man named Jeremy Fox, and his reaction was, what is going on? And that has to be the reaction to most New Yorkers who are not tuned in to what's happening.
Well, here in our station just a few moments ago, one of our crew members came into the room where I was. He was in tears. And he said that his fiancée is in a building that is located down in that area right there. And so many New Yorkers are going through exactly this right now.
Okay, we've got Jamie Foxx back on the line. He is the witness we were talking about. Jamie, can you hear?
Jeremy, yes.
Jeremy, I'm sorry.
It's all right. Everyone's walking around on the streets downstairs. They're not running anymore. They're just walking like they don't know what to do anymore. I'm back out on my terrace trying not to breathe too deeply. There's white powder just covers everything. People are walking outside the hospital, just walking. They don't know what to do anymore, I think. Everything is covered. The second building is burning. Everyone's running around, just walking, actually, not even running, in utter confusion as to what's going on, just crossing the streets of Gold Street, and up to the FDR, to the East River, from which the World Trade Centers are on the West Side Highway, as everyone knows. It's just covered in white powder. Everything is covered, and there's just a smoke everywhere that's starting to clear and starting to pass.
And Jeremy, you were saying that you were taking pictures. You've chosen to stay. Why?
This is my home. I don't know where to go. I mean, I can't leave. I mean, I have nowhere else to go. I could leave and go somewhere in this neighborhood, but I can't get out of this neighborhood. I live here. Mm-hmm. I have no other possibilities. I'm very nervous. I would pray to God that they wouldn't bring down these residential buildings that I live in. But I couldn't imagine the damage that those buildings have done, that dropping the World Trade Center has done. I'm still wondering what brought that building down.
Well, our reports are that a hijacked plane, a plane that was hijacked.
A third plane brought that one down?
No, the second one was a collapse of the building, and that might have been structural because of all the damage incurred by the explosion, by the plane crashing into it. There is some talk that there is a possibility now of the second tower also crashing to the ground because the two towers apparently were interdependent on each other for stability. So eyes are focused now on this tower. Hopes are that it will stay intact, but we are not certain yet.
I mean, I pray to God that all the families of people, that they've evacuated everyone out of these buildings, and all the families, it's so horrible. I mean,
Jeremy, are you getting any kind of sense at all of what the situation might be there at the base, at the base of the towers?
I'm east of the base. What I can see now is I can see the top of the building, the right building with the tower, with the satellite tower. Excuse me, is billowing smoke. Downstairs, people are just walking on. I'm looking down onto Gold and Fulton Street. Excuse me, I'm outside, and I'm looking up to the FDR, and people are actually walking on the FDR. They must be evacuating everything and having people walk on the FDR. And people are walking around in utter confusion, and just, it doesn't seem like they know what to do or where to go. I mean, because there is nowhere to go.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to come back to you.
Okay.
We can just tell you now that the plane that first crashed into the second tower was a 767 Boeing plane, and it was out of Boston. It was apparently hijacked from Boston. That was the first crash, and that happened just after 8 o'clock. The second crash that we've showed you quite a few times, and we'll probably show that to you again, came from a hijacked plane apparently from Newark, New Jersey. And here it is. You can see it again. This is the one that caused the most devastation, because you're going to see what happens next. The plane goes from the back of the tower all the way through it, the fiery explosion that happens after that, and then not more than maybe a half hour to 40 minutes later, the entire tower just collapses.
And we're getting some indication from Melinda Murphy in our helicopter. It looks to her, at least, as if the second tower appears to be perhaps buckling or leaning, and I'm going to...
Debris actually falling from the building. And you can imagine, the people in the area, what must be going through their minds at this point? Many of them, again, not knowing, not having access to television or radio, and they have no idea. All they're seeing is this fiery mass in the sky, and all kinds of evacuations, people being taken to hospitals, mass confusion at this point in Lower Manhattan.
And of course, it's just such enormous structures. They are literally blocks high, and blocks around the structures are going to be affected by the collapse and the threatened collapse of the second one. We are just beginning, everyone, to scratch the surface here of trying to understand what the damage could be.
And while we're looking at these pictures here in New York, the Pentagon also under attack, if we will. Just after this happened, a plane crashed apparently into the Pentagon in Washington. There you see it there. You're looking at the aftermath of that now. The Pentagon has been evacuated, as has the West Wing of the White House and another building nearby. So all kinds of explosions on the East Coast of our country, both in Washington and New York City. And again, there's so much to these tragedies that what is really shocking is that we're being told that these were hijacked planes.
Just thinking about the loss of life on the planes alone.
Exactly. Kamikaze hijackers who took the lives of not only themselves but all the innocent people along with them, both in the buildings and in those planes.
Well, obviously, this is the government, all local civic disaster services is on the highest alert possible across the country.
FBI is involved, absolutely.
Once again, we should mention that wherever you may be in this country, you're not going to be flying out of any airport. All airports are closed. No planes are taking off. Any planes that are in the air are being ordered to land. The highest security clearances, highest levels of security are being ordered across the country.
Okay, there are also now unconfirmed reports of anonymous planes in Virginia, right around the airspace of Virginia. So they're focusing their attention now on that as well. We have no idea, obviously no idea, who might be responsible for this. No one has claimed responsibility, and we have no idea of the magnitude of the human casualties. We can only imagine as this happened during the start of the workday here in New York and in Washington, D.C.
And you'll remember back in 1993, Lynn, at the attack of the World Trade Center then, that later on, as the entire scope of the plot began to be learned, that they believed they had plans. They believe they had uncovered plans where terrorists were then waiting for people to flee Manhattan and bomb possibly the George Washington Bridge, right, or the Holland or Lincoln tunnels.
Now you're looking at
for that reason, everything
right?
is closed out in and out of the city.
And this is a shot you're seeing right there of the earlier attack back in '93 of the World Trade Center. 6 people died in that attack. There were a few people who went to trial for that, still serving time for that, convicted of that. And the message after that was that there is more to come. We've heard rumors of that. We've been on alert for that for several years. And a lot of precaution has been taken. But there is no precaution that you can take in airspace, obviously, from what we've seen. 2 planes crashing right into the upper floors of the World Trade Towers. The first one, the upper floors. The second plane crashing into the center
here's
of
one
the
more,
first one.
Here's one more update from Washington, Lynn. The AP is reporting that a car bomb has exploded outside the State Department.
This is live Washington that you're seeing right now. All right, an
We don't know
ambulance.
exactly what the location is there, but emergency vehicles perhaps heading to the State Department once again reports that a car bomb has exploded outside the State Department. No word at all yet on what the extent of the damage would be from that.
And President Bush on the air live a little while ago saying that this country is under a terrorist attack, and that's obviously exactly what is happening here. We don't know the full scope of it yet. We are watching it unfold as you do.
Well, yeah, nobody knows the full scope of it, even the people at the highest levels. President Bush, who is in Sarasota, Florida, I believe visiting a school at the time he was notified of this, has sent his sympathies to any people impacted by this tragedy. He's ordered a full-scale investigation to, quote, hunt down the folks who committed this act.
All right, we were speaking to a terrorist expert. I don't know if we still have the doctor on the line. Dr. Kushner, can you hear? I'm sorry, he has left us for the moment. Hopefully we'll get back to him. We do have crews on the way to the scene, but we've been telling you the problem with most broadcasting in and around this area is that we're not being allowed to get close to the scene for obvious reasons. But we do have Melinda Murphy in the area. She is in Chopper 11. She's been reporting all morning that there's debris coming out of the building, and it looks like the building is actually buckling now. And this is the second tower of the World Trade Center, the first tower completely demolished at this point.
If you are just joining us, this is not some sort of a bad dream you're looking at right there. That is the World Trade Center -1 tower. The second tower collapsed earlier about an hour after the impact from a jetliner, which was apparently deliberately flown into it.
Yes, and from a hijacked plane, from what we're told. Again, the first plane crash, the plane hijacked, according to the FBI, according to AP, out of Boston. The second, right out of Newark Airport. Okay, we've got Sukanya Krishnan now. Sukanya, what can you tell us?
Lynn, we're on the street here on 42nd and 2nd Avenue just to give you an idea of what's going on. It seems like it's rush hour right now. You can see we're at a phone booth. A lot of people trying to get in touch with their loved ones. I was one of those on a cell phone, sir. Were you able to get service with that?
No.
As a result of no service, you've got people that are just trying to get in touch with anyone who is downtown. Ma'am, can you just be careful? As you can see, some people obviously very emotional here. If you can just take a look over here. People trying to figure out what is going on. The whole consensus is out on the street. Not a lot of people really understand what is happening on the streets of New York. If you can take a look, a lot of people have come up to me, asked me questions. Do you know what's going on? A lot of people are unaware, but what we can tell you is that a lot of businesses are letting people go. If you could take a look down here on 2nd Avenue, a lot of the people are coming this way. Also, you're hearing fire engines, you're hearing police trucks, just a slew of activity as people are trying to make a mad dash. But the problem is, as we have been notifying people, all bridges and tunnels are closed, as well as what we are seeing, a lot of buses are not in service. So at this point, if you are in Manhattan, my understanding is you should stay in Manhattan or try and stay in this vicinity because the roadways are clogged. I'm going to try and talk to some people and see if they have an idea of what's going on. Ma'am, were you let out of work early today? You're on live, Channel 11.
I was at the work. I work on 55 Water for TD Waterhouse. We saw the whole thing.
You saw everything.
The plane hit. We saw the second plane. We saw when the thing blew up, the fire, and we lost it. Everybody just left. That was it.
Can you just tell me, you were on the ground. Tell me your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Jeanette.
Jeanette. You're obviously very emotional. Jeanette.
I'm sorry.
I know. I can totally understand that. Yes, go ahead, Jim.
Tanya, as you basically informed some people what happened, assuming some people had no idea what was happening, what kinds of reactions are you getting from people?
Oh, look
there
at
goes
this.
the second tower.
You're going to the second tower. You're looking at this live right now.
Okay.
Both towers now completely destroyed of the World Trade Center. You have no idea how many people may have been in those buildings. We have no idea. This is a major communication center for this city, for this country. Many government offices in those towers. Amazing video as you're watching it now. It's not video, it's live. It's right before your very eyes.
The World Trade Center is gone, ladies and gentlemen.
Both buildings collapsing from apparent terrorist attacks. And we want to just take you through this. The first explosion happened right after 8 o'clock this morning. We're being told that a plane was hijacked from Boston Airport. It flew into the second tower of the two World Trade Center towers. The second plane, coming 18 minutes later, flew into the first tower, into the middle part of that first tower. It exploded inside the building, coming from the back all the way into the front of the building. A few minutes later, here's a look at the second plane hitting. A few minutes later, there was a report in Washington that the Pentagon had been hit, and there was a report that the tail end of a plane had exploded into the Pentagon. You're looking now again at a shot that happened at about 9:15, 9:14 this morning. This is what's happening. Then after that, the first tower collapsed. You can see that. That was right around 10 o'clock, maybe a little bit before 10 o'clock. It's about to collapse, the first tower of the World Trade Center. Shortly after that, as we were saying, the second tower. The tower was buckling, there was debris falling from it, and then a half hour later, this is what you saw just a few seconds ago right here live. The second tower collapses. The human toll untold right now. We have no idea how many people were in those buildings or around the buildings.
Trapped inside,
we have no idea at this point.
What was going on down below?
We do know that the stock exchange has been closed. Buildings in the area have been evacuated. Penn Station evacuated. The airports have been shut down because of the hijackings involved. Now, we're told of the two here in New York. We were telling you earlier about the Pentagon also being under attack, and here you're seeing that now, a plane crashing into the Pentagon. The Pentagon was evacuated. The West Wing of the White House has been evacuated. Another building nearby has been evacuated, and there was just a report of a car bomb also
outside the State Department
in Washington.
So some sort of grand terrorist plan is being executed here. I think what is striking, is going to strike a lot of people, is that there apparently was absolutely no word, no intelligence whatsoever, no forewarning whatsoever about the possibility of such an attack even being
You hear
imagined.
threats all the time, Jim, and you hear them, and you always think you're safe. You always think, okay, the FBI is on top of this. It can't happen. It will never happen here. But you can never feel too safe, apparently, from what we're watching now. We started out this day, a beautiful, clear day, and before we knew it, one tower of the World Trade Center was exploding, a plane crashing into it, a hijacked plane, of all things, a hijacked plane coming out of Boston exploding into it, and then a second one exploding into it. There you're looking at it. Washington right now. That is New York City right now. That is the leveling of the World Trade Center. The landscape will never be the same.
Will never be the same in Manhattan.
Never be the same in Lower Manhattan.
That has become the landmark that has anchored the lower end of Manhattan, and it is gone today. We also just heard that all international flights coming into New York or Washington are being diverted to Canada, so they're not even letting international planes land in this country right now. Also, no planes can take off from any airport anywhere in the U.S. Planes that are currently in the air must land, but it's up to the pilot and the individual airlines whether they go on to their destination or land immediately.
And also we're told that the area around the UN has been closed off, shut down. We have no idea if there have been any threats in that area, but that has been shut down as well. It may be precautionary.
Right, the UN just a few blocks from here. We have some people over there, and hopefully we'll bring you some reports from that soon. That would certainly be a high priority target on a day such as this, and we'll bring you the latest from there as soon as we can.
It's incredible to watch. These are live pictures. Two of the country's major cities, Washington, D.C. and New York, under terrorist attack. And those were the words of the president earlier as he said, our country is under terrorist attack. We're going to be cutting to the president at some point. He's going to have a statement for us.
What you're seeing on the ground there is actually dust.
Right.
From the debris from the collapse of the towers. It looks like it's already an inch thick.
And
plus.
that's all that is left of the Twin Towers at this hour. Dust. Unbelievable. Completely devastated. And again, we have no idea of the human casualties, the tolls here.
No, as I was saying before, there's just so much that we
have yet to learn.
That we still have yet to learn, both about the extent of the damage and how this even began to unfold in the first place. But it looks as if there are 1,000 nightmare stories to be told here.
I don't know if we have our eyewitness on the line still. Do we have Jeremy on the line at this point? May we speak with him again? We're going to come to him in a few minutes. We've got Sukanya Krishnan. She is live for us outside, very close to the UN. It's also been shut down at this time, the area around the UN. Sukanya, what can you tell us?
Right, Lynn, we're on 42nd and 2nd, and as you can see, there are buses, but this bus is crossing through, and it's kind of blocking our way right now. But none of the buses are in service as we're speaking. We want to point out to a lot of people that there are no train service, there are no ferries, the tunnels are closed, most bridges are closed. And if you can look over here, traffic is completely being diverted from the UN. If you can get a sneak peek, because police have completely cordoned off that area as obviously the UN possibly could be another target. A lot of people are just kind of walking around unaware of what's going on. Sir, can I talk to you? Obviously, you left work early.
I was in the UN itself, and I happened to arrive just about the time that the planes did hit the World Trade Center. And it was a while before they actually evacuated the building, but now it seems that they're telling everybody to leave. They had us down in the first basement. And
what was the mode there? Were they telling people to be prepared that anything could happen at this point?
Well,
at the UN, obviously a landmark building.
At that point in the morning, it was still relatively empty because people were just coming into work. So a lot of people were blocked from coming upstairs at all. I was already upstairs, and eventually they told us to evacuate the building.
Where are you from, sir?
I'm from Mastic, Long Island.
Mastic, Long Island. And are you aware that there are no trains?
Yeah,
Okay.
I realize I'm stuck here now till whatever happens.
Okay. Obviously, this woman trying to get service. Are you trying to get through?
Can't. There's like no signals. My father's in the city, but I think you can't even get out of the city at this point.
Can you tell me what's going through your mind at this point?
I'm a nervous wreck. I wanted to throw up. It's like one of those movies, like the Independence Day, when they come over and they take over the city. That's how I feel. I work up there by the window, so I had to leave.
When you heard it was happening, when you saw the first tower go down.
Hysterical. I have girlfriends. All my friends are in the World Trade Center on the 42nd floor. I don't know which building or if they're okay, but cell phones don't work at this point.
Both towers of the World Trade Center have gone down at this point.
They crumbled.
Both have crumbled.
This is insanity. Do they know who's responsible for this? Terrorists, or it's just assumptions right now?
We do not know. It's just assumptions, but good luck to you. Please be safe.
Yeah, I know.
There is no way out of here if you can just stay put.
I know.
And this is the problem. A lot of people are just trying to figure out what are we going to do. That's kind of why everybody's sort of approaching me. Just take a look. This has been a familiar scene. Police cars, unmarked cruisers running down the street, obviously very busy. We saw a fire engine that actually came up the opposite way on 2nd Avenue. You can tell a lot of people are trying to get cabs. Unbelievable. If you could just turn over here, if I can give you sort of a look as to what this street looks like. The bus stops are packed. People are just kind of scratching their heads, unclear of what they're going to do. This is, excuse me, ma'am, this is definitely what people are doing, trying to get in touch with their loved ones. You can see the line here for the payphone. Obviously, cell phones are not working. Let's just see if somebody is able to get through. Sir, were you able to get through on the phone?
No.
You are not able to get through?
Yeah, no, not at all.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Who are you trying to reach?
SBS.
Yeah. Are you trying to get in touch with friends?
Friends, yeah.
Are you nervous at this point?
Yeah, I'm very nervous about this situation.
Yeah. Do you have friends that work downtown, sir?
Yes. We saw the firing and scaring, very scary.
Very scary.
Yeah.
Did you see what was going on, sir? Have you?
No, I was on a bus going to Atlantic City.
So you obviously are unaware what's going on.
I'm aware of it. I got a portable radio. They closed the bus.
What is going through your mind right now?
Terrible.
Yeah.
It's like a book, like a movie. It's like a Japanese movie coming to New York.
Ma'am, can I talk to you? You're obviously part of the United Nations. Were you one of the few people that were evacuated from the United Nations?
They just started screaming and said, everybody leave the building immediately. We were actually part of the Tarumi violinists. We were all about performing. He had his violin up ready to play, and they just came running and they said, clear.
Did you know at that point what was going on, what has been happening since 9 o'clock this morning?
Someone called my cell phone and said something happened at the World Trade something. And
do you know that both towers of the World Trade Center have crashed?
Heard. We were actually one of the fathers of the performers works down in that building. Had we not been there, he would have been in the building. So he was just devastated, and it's awful.
I don't know, Lynn and Jim, I don't know if you can hear the utter chaos that's kind of going on here. Once again, if you could take a look at 2nd Avenue, which is the main access that would go down to World Trade, to Lower Manhattan, you can see that ambulances are sort of racing down. And
you
can
mentioned
see
also, Sakani, that we're still a long way outside here from the World Trade Center,
right.
so we can only imagine what the scenario is there.
We are, but just to give you an idea, 2nd Avenue has virtually clear from my vantage point right now. 2nd Avenue past 34th Street looks like it is absolutely clear, that they have cleared the roadways, and that way emergency officials can get to where they are going. The whole thing is where they are detouring traffic right now. That's the question, and a lot of people have a lot of answers, Jim, and obviously a lot of uncertainty on the streets, people trying to get cabs, people trying to get home, and
people trying to contact their loved ones. Thank you so much, Sukanya. We will get back to you in just a little bit.
Okay.
You know, we're forgetting one thing today is primary day.
Election day.
It's election day, and all of the polling places, we are told, have now been closed. And you are looking at a live picture of the devastation of Lower Manhattan.
You're looking where the World Trade Center
once stood.
Used to stand. And I cannot believe I'm saying those words.
Those two towers under attack earlier this morning, just after 8 o'clock. Two planes, one coming from Boston, the second plane that you're seeing now apparently hijacked out of Newark, coming around the first tower of the World Trade Center. Now, that was the first tower. You're going to see the explosion. There it is going through the building. Just a little while after that, that tower collapsed. Here is the collapse right now. And this is what happened right around 10 o'clock this morning. And the two towers were interdependent structurally. So what happened next was the second tower started to buckle. Debris kept falling from it, and then eventually a half hour later, this is what happened to that tower. Completely destroyed. And again, we talk and we see the pictures, but what we don't see is what's happening in the area or inside of those buildings.
The only thing we can really know for sure is what's happening in the area is that there's almost, now you're looking at the Pentagon right now,
Right.
Obviously serious damage caused to the Pentagon. I believe there are reports there where that another plane, we assume it was a hijacked plane as well, crashed into the Pentagon this morning. An enormous fire is burning there as well. We do not know, it's a situation here, do not know what the extent of the damage at the Pentagon is, what the extent of the possible loss of life and injuries.
Right.
We are just now told there's been a fourth explosion.
And we're also being told
At the
that
World Trade
witnesses
Center.
have reported seeing bodies falling from the Trade Center, and they also saw people jumping from the building. We can only imagine just how terrifying all of this is at ground zero right there.
All of Lower Manhattan inundated with the dust and debris from the tower collapse. There's actually a threat of respiratory problems if you go
Right.
outside now. If you're anywhere in Lower Manhattan, the best thing you can do is just stay in your home, stay put.
And we just received word that there was a fourth explosion at the World Trade Center. We have no idea what that was, if it was related to the first two explosions, secondary explosions from the first two, or obviously other attacks. But that is the live picture that you're seeing. That is where the World Trade Center, the Twin Towers, once stood, and now devastation.
The AP is calling it a well-orchestrated orgy of terrorism, and clearly this was the one that that the United States has been dreading since terrorism began.
And in two cities, you're looking right now, we're back live in New York City, Lower Manhattan, where the World Trade Center was. We were just showing you pictures of the Pentagon in Washington, or another plane, a fire plane over the Washington. This is a live shot. You are looking at this now. Take a look. This is a plane over Washington. A plane over Washington. That was a fighter plane.
It's to no surprise, military planes have now taken to the air over Washington amid reports that other planes, perhaps they fear other hijacked planes with other targets in mind, were in the Washington area. We have just been informed that in western Pennsylvania, Somerset County Airport, a large plane has gone down there. We don't know what the circumstances are, don't know if there's any particular intended target in western Pennsylvania. One more thing we'll just have to try to effort more information on and keep you up on.
Now, you know, as we're talking to you and telling you what you're seeing right in front of your eyes, if you're able to watch television at this point, if you have this communication vehicle, the country, the eastern part of this country, is under attack.
Yes, the country's under attack. Absolutely. The highest levels of security are in effect in Washington and New York. Life has come to a standstill here. Traffic has come to a halt. Bridges and tunnels are all completely closed. Every contingency plan you could think of, and then some, are in effect right now. Although I must say that this attack, I'm going to guess, has exceeded the worst fears of people who specialize in this type of prevention.
I think that would be safe to say. Again, two of our city's biggest towns right now on the East Coast. New York City, Washington under attack. President calling it the country under terrorist attack.
Sukanya standing by, Sukanya Christian back on 42nd Street. They've evacuated the UN. Sukanya.
All right, we're just going to take a look at what's happening on 3rd Avenue. The UN is right over here. You can see the Israeli consulate is over here. You can see emergency service medical squad racing down 2nd Avenue to get to where you're going to. Obviously, a lot of people trying to get out of the city. Mark was actually in Lower Manhattan. Mark, you witnessed the first plane going in. Can you just tell us what you saw?
Just heard a loud noise as though the plane was going to crash, and everyone ducked. And then we saw the plane just veer right into the building and hit the top of the building.
That was the first one, right? What went through your mind, and what did you see? Did you see the smoke? Did you see the explosion?
I saw everything. Thought it was just a random act. Thought that a plot pilot had gotten out of control. Then we were watching it from Lafayette Street, and about 10 minutes later, 12 minutes later, the second one hit from behind. Just saw a glimpse of the plane coming down and hitting from the opposite side of the building. It was like a big rippling effect. All the glass exploded.
Can you tell me what was happening on the ground? Were people running for cover?
Oh, yeah. When the second one, first people were watching, spectators were watching the first building go up in flames. When the second one hit, people started running. There was paper flying everywhere. You could see there was like a big rippling effect. People were screaming. And then within 5 or 10 minutes, there were people actually in our area who were bloody. Shirts were ripped.
The Associated Press was reporting that there were reports from witnesses saying that there were bodies falling from the ground.
Right,
Did you see that?
Yeah, you could see things falling from it. From the distance we were at, it looked like there was a lot of metal falling, a lot of paper, building, office supplies, desks coming down, and then of course bodies. You could see a lot of bodies flying down as well. It was awful.
Can you just tell me, you saw one of the towers collapse, didn't you?
Right, it collapsed right on top of itself. And then it was pandemonium. People were screaming, running for cover, instant cloud cover. And then I was able to get on the subway at the time and make it back up to uptown. So
when you saw the collapse, that's when you left?
Right, that's when I left.
Did you know that the second tower also collapsed?
I actually was on the roof of my building here on 42nd. I just witnessed the second tower collapse.
What is going through your mind now? Do you feel like you're in shock? Do you feel a little...
Well, yeah, obviously in shock. When the second plane hit, obviously you start to realize that it's some kind of plot or some kind of attack against the United States. But when the first plane hit, you tend to think it's just a random act. Obviously a pretty incredible random act. But when the second one hit, then you pretty much goes through your mind that we're under attack. And then you hear the car went off in the state building, Pentagon got attacked, so pretty organized.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much, Mark, for joining us live. Obviously, a lot of people from downtown are slowly making their way uptown as people try and escape the scenario and the scene and the chaos that is occurring in lower Manhattan. Once again, this has been a familiar scene all down 2nd Avenue. We want to give you some perspective. If you can look over here on the corner of 2nd Avenue and 42nd Street, the building that this ambulance is passing right now, that is the Israeli consulate. Obviously, the Israeli consulate has heightened its security force outside. They have already closed 2 lanes on 2nd Avenue. And over here, you can see that they have closed down part of the way to the UN as well. A lot of people asking questions, trying to figure out what is going on. We've been actually trying to tell people that train service as well as buses, all the tunnels and bridges are closed. We're going to try and find some other people here if we could. Ma'am, are you aware of what's going on, or?
I don't know. I just remember.
Okay. Ma'am, are you aware of what's going on? Have you been evacuated from your building?
I'm not dead, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Obviously, a lot of people are trying to get in touch with their loved ones to tell them that they are okay. As many people, as you can see, are getting on their cell phones. And once again, this is a very familiar scene, people waiting online. Ma'am, were you evacuated from your building?
No, not yet, actually.
Yeah. Obviously, you are in a moment here as people kind of collect their thoughts as to what's happening today. A lot of people unclear, praying for their loved ones. Can you just tell me what's going through your mind right now?
Right now I'm just calm. I'm really calm right now. I just say a prayer. You leave it in the Lord's hands. That's all you can do right now.
Are you trying to get in touch with your loved one?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I will leave it at that. A lot of people keeping faith, keeping with their faith, and keeping strong. And of course, we'll give you the very latest. So, Jim and Lynn, back to you.
Very much, Sukanya. Let's sum up what has taken place so far this morning. In case you haven't heard, it all began just before 9 o'clock this morning at the World Trade Center. We're going to take a look at the tape from this morning. Actually, one plane was hit just before 9. Just after 9, a plane hijacked from Newark Airport crashed, you'll see here, through the back of Tower 1 of the World Trade Center. These are apparently hijacked planes, the first one from Boston, the second one from Newark. About an hour after that, that tower, Tower number 1, collapsed to the ground. At this point, only one of the twin towers of the World Trade Center is still standing. But even as the hour went by, people saw it beginning to lean, beginning to buckle. And about 20 minutes ago, the second World Trade Center tower collapsed to the ground. That's the view live now from Lower Manhattan, no longer, of course, distinguished, as it has been for the past 30 years, by those giant Trade Center towers, a symbol around the world, a symbol of New York's and America's commerce and economic power now gone, and Lower Manhattan awash in smoke and dust and debris and thousands of sad and tragic stories that we will be learning about in the hours and the days ahead. We also want to mention one other thing here about the primary election. This is primary election day, which seems almost a trite notion at this time, but we do want to tell you that the primary election, I'm sure this is unprecedented in New York history, has been called off. A number of people, of course, would have voted earlier in the day, but the election has been called off. What the mechanics of this will be in terms of rescheduling another one can only guess, but that is another subject for another day. But we do want to tell you that if you were planning to go to your polls today and vote, all the polls have been closed. The election has been postponed. No voting today. Another item. A large plane crashed just north of the Somerset County Airport. That's about 80 miles north of Pittsburgh. Told it is a Boeing 767. We don't have any more word on what that is or what reason that plane was crashed in that place. You're looking out at the Pentagon, where about an hour and a half ago, a plane was crashed into the center of the America's military might. A serious fire, serious damage resulting there. We don't know what the casualties are there as well. A car bomb went off at the State Department earlier today as well. In short, the northeastern part of the U.S. is under terrorist attack. I'm joined now by my colleague, Kari Tong, who has joined us and learned about this in much the same way as everybody else has. Tell me your thoughts this morning, Kari.
I don't mind telling you that I'm shaky right now. My son goes to school in that area, and for the last hour, of course, I've been trying to contact him in the school. There's been no answer because, as we all know now, the cell phones are not working. I'm horrified. I'm stunned. I can't believe that I'm even looking at what we're looking at right now. When I got out on 6th Avenue, there were hordes of people in the street, gathered on the sidewalk. Total chaos. None of the cabs would take any passengers. They were all filled. I actually had to ask somebody at a stoplight, a nice man. I said, "Excuse me, I must get to work. Could you take me?" He said, "No problem." Gregory Jarvis is his name. I thank you. I jumped in there, but it took us forever because the streets were jammed.
Traffic is jammed.
And while we were on 6th Avenue, we heard this giant gasp from the crowds on the street, and we looked behind us, and sure enough, that was when we saw the second tower come down. I actually watched this in total disbelief come crumbling down. And because you can hear my voice, I am shaking and trying to just pull myself together. I'm worried about my little boy. And
yes, all of our viewers certainly must understand that we live here too with our families. This is a tragedy that is going to touch many, if not most, lives of people in this city, and it's an adjustment that we're having to make too, just to kind of accept the reality of this and pass along to you what is going on. What is going on is, as you look at Lower Manhattan, is that the World Trade Center is gone, destroyed by 2 jetliners, hijacked and crashed, each one into one of the World Trade Center towers.
We want to reiterate that the primary election, which was to be held today, has been called off. You mentioned that just earlier because of what has happened today. And I'm looking at this picture right now and seeing the billows of smoke, and where 2 towers once stood just an hour ago, 2 hours ago, and now no longer exist. The people who are, I suppose, we weren't able to get close enough to see what was going on the ground.
No, nobody can yet. But certainly you have to think that the scenario of the buildings collapsing, although the anti-terrorism police and the security police and the emergency management people are the best in the world here in New York City, and one can only hope that there was time to get the people not only out of the building but away from the building as well before the collapse came. Having said that, we still don't know how many people were killed in just simply the impact itself or on board the planes. The 767 that was hijacked from Boston that crashed first, we have no word yet on what was on that plane, but one can only assume that on a morning flight on a Tuesday morning that it was filled with travelers.
We have an eyewitness on the phone with us right now. His name is Jeremy Fox. Jeremy, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Tell me where you were and what you saw when this happened.
I was in bed, and then when the first explosion happened and it rattled my apartment. Hold on, let me put my TV on mute. And then I got out of bed and I heard a lot of ambulances and sirens, and I went onto my terrace, and I live east of the Twin Towers, and I saw the explosion of the second plane. I couldn't see the second plane coming in.
And here's a look at that second plane hitting Tower number 1.
Yeah, I saw that exact, and it was horrific, and it was a firebomb. I took pictures of it, and then I called all my friends to make sure they're okay, and then I was sitting out watching. I was on my terrace watching, the fire and the horror and the ambulances downstairs, because I looked down onto the emergency room of Beekman Hospital, NYU Downtown Hospital, and as I was watching, the left building without the tower, without the satellite tower, blew.
All right, Jeremy, hold that thought for just
Sure.
one moment. We're going to go back outside here to 42nd Street, Sukanya Christian, with someone who was close to the action. Ron in Santa, as a matter of fact, it appears to be.
That's right, Jim. I'm with Ron in Santa. Ron, obviously you're making the trek from the World Trade Center. Can you just tell us, where were you when this happened, sir?
Well, I was fairly close to the building, actually. I was on my way to cover the event for CNBC, and as we were walking across to try to get to the West Side Highway where we thought our trucks were, the south tower started to collapse, and we were fairly close to it, and it started to rain down debris. My cameraman and I ran, and I ditched around a corner, and there was just debris falling everywhere till it was pitch black, and you couldn't breathe. I ducked into a car and stayed there till it just got light enough to get into a building. And then we stayed in there and then hooked up with some police and drove up here. It was as bad a thing as I could have imagined. I mean, honestly, I thought I was going to die in the car because it wasn't getting any lighter.
Can you just tell me, what was the scene like outside when you were able to emerge from the car? What were you able to see? You're obviously covered in thick soot.
Well, if you've seen movies about a nuclear winter, that's kind of what it looked like. I mean, it was a deep gray haze with just a few blinking lights that you could see on police cars, and maybe some small lights coming out from the inside of buildings. But you couldn't see much, and we just stayed in the building for a little while and then caught up with a couple police officers.
Were you down there when the second tower went down at all, or
No,
at that time where you were able to get out?
I don't know if I was, because I don't know what time that happened. We were inside a building that was probably about 3 or 4 blocks away, and then we just worked our way around the south side of the island with a couple of policemen, and we picked up some injured people on the way up and dropped them off at the hospital.
Tell us about the injured people. I mean, what were you able to see? I mean, were there people lining the sidewalks? I mean,
There were some
how
people,
severe?
Well, the injuries that I saw were not terribly severe. There were some bloodied people. The policeman that we picked up had a deep gash in his forehead. One woman that we also picked up, the police officer picked up, actually had shrapnel in her arm. She didn't know what from.
Ron, when you made your way up here, do you think people are aware of what exactly is happening here today?
I think, the early reports were fairly comprehensive about the various activities that are going on elsewhere around the country as well. And I think as we walked up here, most people kind of were fairly well apprised of the situation. Now, as for what else is going on, I think, it's kind of hard to get in touch at the moment.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're glad that you're doing well. Ron Insana of CNBC, he was obviously down there at the World Trade Center. You could see by the way he looked, obviously, he was there when the first tower went off. He recounted for us that he had to almost duck into a car to catch his breath and to stay alive. He said that if he didn't get that car, that he wouldn't. Obviously, you can see a lot of people kind of surrounding here, a lot of people just walking around unaware of what's really going on. Ma'am, do you know what's going on, or where are you headed to?
No.
Sir, were you evacuated from your building?
Yeah, we were in United Nations.
Yes.
We have been evacuated.
Can you tell us what they're saying to you at the United Nations?
They say that the essential staff could stay,
Okay.
but all the people who were not essential, that didn't belong to the Security Council, had to leave.
All right, thank you. Just to give you an idea, Kaidi and Jim, just take a look at 2nd Avenue over here. It's pretty much turned into a pedestrian mall as pedestrians are pretty much taking over the street as people are just trying to find a place to go. A lot of people have been asking questions as, are the trains working?
Yes,
Are the buses working?
I would say that a lot of people's concern at this point is now, even though it's not even noon yet, is how are they going to get home tonight?
Right, how do they
because
get out of the
it appears
city?
there's no way to get out of the city at this point.
There appears there is no way out of the city. If you can come over here, this is a scene that we're seeing over and over again. We don't want to intrude on their space, but obviously a lot of people emotional here, taking a moment, trying to realize the gravity of this situation. People kind of holding on to each other and trying to come to grips. Also, take a look at this, the phone line, Jim. Jim, we've been showing you this again and again all morning. People trying to call their loved one, people trying to say that they are okay, that they are alive, and that they are staying put. Also, we want to show you over here, this is the Israeli consulate for a lot of people. And of course, there's heightened security over here. And also, past this way, you can see that is the way to the United Nations, and the roadways are completely closed as police.
I think we just lost it, Kanye, there, the signal.
Okay.
You brought up a very good point, because people at this time are trying to find some way of getting home. The trains have stopped. Of course, all the airports have been closed. I understand that City Hall has been evacuated, and we hear that in Brooklyn they're getting dust and debris falling on them as far away as Brooklyn.
Yes, I wish that we could tell you more. You're looking at a live picture now from Washington, D.C. That once again, that is the Pentagon. Still fire burning there after reportedly a plane crashed into the Pentagon as well this morning, shortly after the impacts on the World Trade Center. We wish we could tell you more about transportation issues right now, but obviously with the life-saving efforts that must be going on in Lower Manhattan, that has been pushed a bit down on the priority list. And I think the best thing that we can do for residents and commuters alike is to first get out of Lower Manhattan or stay in your homes where it's safe, and just try to hunker down and deal with this as best you can. It's going to be impacting our lives here for many days to come.
Yes, it certainly is not a normal day in any way to speak of, and we just were told that the Yankee game has been postponed that was scheduled for tonight. Obviously, no one's going to be in any mood to celebrate or to play.
No, and
baseball.
I think that's probably a security precaution as well, Kaidi.
Exactly.
The last thing that there's the last thing that the government, emergency management people want right now is large groups of people gathered in one place.
Exactly.
So that's not going to happen. Summing up, once again, if in case you just happen to be joining us or have heard something going on and want to get the latest is that the World Trade Center is gone. Each of the towers struck by a hijacked jetliner this morning, one just before 9 o'clock, one just after 9 o'clock. The plane that was struck by the second plane, or the tower that was struck by the second plane, tower number 1 collapsed first. Here comes the second plane. You see the gaping wound from the first plane near the top. Here comes the second plane, reportedly hijacked from Newark Airport, directly
heading
into the building, virtually coming through
it.
The other side. About a half hour to 40 minutes later, the building just could not take it structurally and collapsed in a huge plume of smoke and debris. And about 20 minutes to a half hour after that, the second tower collapsed. You saw a glimpse of one of the communications antennas on top dropping into the smoke.
It's impossible even to think about the carnage and chaos that is going on right there.
Well,
and all the people who are working that building, all the government buildings, the government offices,
and
the
certainly
restaurants.
What we don't know is what kind of evacuation procedures, what kind of haste they were able to make with their evacuation procedures after the initial hit.
Exactly.
Certainly the prayers are going out that everyone in the buildings was able to get out, but then you start thinking that it was only 20, 25 more minutes and another 35, 40 more minutes before the tower collapsed. How much could be done in such a huge building? These are all things we're going to have to learn.
And there's another view of the collapse, a little closer. This is at street level. You're seeing the debris just pouring down on the street. And again, we don't know what the extent of the casualties could be. This is the first tower collapse.
And you see down on the street, of course, emergency personnel
already in place.
We are getting our security procedures for here at the Daily News building, which is not far from the Israeli consulate, not far from the UN. So here in the building where WPIX is located, we're also tightening up all our security procedures here. I want to read you a statement that has just been issued from Governor George Pataki. Today's horrific incident at the World Trade Center, which appears to be part of a coordinated terrorist attack, is a tragedy of unspeakable proportions and a crime against all Americans and all decent people around the world. I have been in contact with President Bush and Mayor Giuliani to ensure that the appropriate emergency response is as effective and well coordinated as possible. As a precautionary measure, we've closed all non-emergency related state government offices in New York City We will keep the press and the public aware of that effort and of other relevant information as it becomes available throughout the day. A rather dry and plain-spoken statement there, but just as is the case in Albany with the governor and all the sources that we're in contact with, we just don't know the extent of this yet.
And again, to reiterate, this looks as though it is a coordinated attack, as Governor Pataki says, the Pentagon being hit by a plane and then a bomb outside the State Department.
Or a bomb outside the State Department, and word of a jetliner crashing in western Pennsylvania, 80 miles north of Pittsburgh. We don't know, of course, yet if that is directly related to this. One certainly would think that it is.
We're going to go back now to Sukanya, who's on the street here right outside our offices, and see what's going on down there.
Katie, an unbelievable day. We're here with Paul. Paul was actually downtown. Paul, you walked 50 blocks to get up here. You actually saw the first plane go into the tower.
I saw the second plane. I was standing there watching, and all of a sudden there was this collective gasp. Looked up just to see the South Tower go up in flames, and ran to my office, ran back out to the corner of 5th and 16th a few minutes later. The first tower had already gone. The remaining one was burning from like the top third was burning. All of a sudden there was a huge puff of smoke, and it just went straight down. The whole building went straight down, and just a couple of support girders went down, and that was it. It was gone.
At that point, where were you, and what was the street like? We saw a huge puff of smoke. Obviously, the explosion downtown Manhattan, Lower Manhattan, was absolutely covered. You couldn't even describe it. Can you describe it for us, sir?
What I experienced was there were screams I'll never forget from the crowd I was with, just blood-curdling screams as this building went down, and just shards of glass sparkling in the sun, and then just smoke, and it was gone. It was just gone. I'll never forget it. It's ingrained in my head.
What went through your mind at that point?
To be honest with you, nothing. Just, oh my God. I blanked, and then just thought to myself, get home. Just get home. And
were a lot of people just trying to scramble? Can you just give us some sort of...
My office was clearing out. People were just saying, I'm getting home, I'm going home, I'm walking if I have to.
Was there a sense of chaos? Was there a sense of... can you just kind of give me the mindset where people... It seems like people in this Midtown area haven't really gotten what has happened. Have people in Lower Manhattan, the people who witnessed this, have they...
People were just running away from it. I think just blindly running, trying to get as far away from it as they could. Just people just running. And a combination of disbelief and terror.
And shock. Like most of us who are here and just kind of standing here witnessing what is happening here today. Thank you so much, Paul, for sharing with us today your experience. Once again, Kaidi and Jim, let's give you an idea of what's going on here. We're on 2nd Avenue. We're looking, of course, going to the Upper East Side. Once this bus, of course, passes by, you're going to see what a pedestrian mall this area has completely turned into. It seems that pedestrians are pretty much taking over the street as people are trying to get home, trying to find out what's going on, trying to get to a nearest bus, a nearest taxi. Of course, all the buses are not running. The taxis are trying to help out people as much as they can. A lot of people are working together to get to where they need to go to. The trains are not running. This is a scene again and again that you hear racing down 2nd Avenue. Patrol cars, we've seen ambulances, and that is really the situation. I'll be out here all day trying to get you some more information. So that's the very latest. Back to you, Kaidi and Jim.
Thank you. I have here a statement. It's not really a statement. It's a comment that Mayor Giuliani made when he was asked about casualties. And this is a quote. I have a sense it's a horrendous number of lives lost. I don't know yet. Right now, we have to focus on saving as many lives as possible.
And clearly that is where the efforts are going right now as you look at what was the location of the World Trade Center, still an enormous amount of smoke and dust hovering over the area. There's Washington, D.C., the Pentagon, also struck by a deliberately crashed airliner this morning. A very serious fire burning there. It appears that maybe that's under control at this point, but I probably shouldn't speculate on that. Heidi, let's talk a little bit about what the transportation issues are.
There basically is no transportation.
There is no transportation. New Jersey airports, and I know the New York airports, all the airports everywhere are closed. River crossings to and from New York City were closed. PATH commuter trains have been canceled. New Jersey Transit suspended train service eastbound into New York and Hoboken, canceled all bus service into and out of New York. At Newark International Airport, where it's believed the second plane was hijacked, workers were being shuttled from construction sites in hotel vans. And listen to this, officers with shotguns blocked the road leading to Port Authority offices and the air traffic control tower.
Okay, we just got some word, Jim, that U.S. fighter jets, U.S. fighter jets are tracking down or chasing down an unidentified commercial jet somewhere on the East Coast. We don't know at this point what city it is near, but we do have it narrowed down to the East Coast. Apparently, it's unidentified, has not identified itself, and is being chased down by fighter jets.
Well, the fact that it doesn't identify itself certainly leads you to think that this has also been a hijacked vehicle that's not in contact, and very tough decisions possibly ahead.
And did you mention,
I'm
sorry, did you mention about the officers at Newark Airport, that they're officers with shotguns?
Yes, yes, protecting the Port Authority offices.
Yes.
Of course, the Port Authority, for virtually all of the World Trade Center's history, was the operator of that building. It was sold recently. I do not know, actually, if that deal had been completed and private owners had yet taken over, but it is a building.
Look at this picture. This is live right now from the City Court building. It looks like it's nighttime.
Right. That gives you the perspective right from Square in Midtown. There.
Exactly, exactly. It's a beautiful day. It's bright, sunny, blue skies. But from this picture, there's so much dust, I would imagine, and so much ash and debris in the air, it actually looks as though it's dust.
And it certainly looks as if we reported a little while ago that the lion's share of the dust appears to be falling not just on Lower Manhattan but on Brooklyn as well, and it would appear that that's because that's where the prevailing winds are taking the greatest amount of the dust over toward Brooklyn. Again, a look at Washington as well. What you're seeing there, folks, is a picture of the East Coast's capitals under attack by hijacked airliners, by terrorists who have not made any sort of claim of responsibility or made any public statement as to what all this is about.
We don't know very much as of yet, but we do know, I think, that it's been confirmed that that first plane was hijacked from Boston. Has that been confirmed?
Correct. A 767 hijacked from Boston this morning. It was a flight that was actually heading toward Los Angeles. We don't know what the capacity on the plane was, whether it was full or not, but that's one more bit of information we're trying to get.
All right, we apparently do have some shots now a little closer to what happened on the ground. This is Lower Manhattan. You should see the FBI and all other authorities are going into that area, and this is what I saw when I came out on the street. People holding their faces in shock and disbelief. Some of these people look like they actually might even have been holding claws to their faces. Perhaps they were injured or by some debris.
Well, people are in shock. If you walk out on the streets right now, people are literally wandering around, trying to figure out how to get where they need to go, trying to figure out how to get someplace, trying to figure out how to contact loved ones. And I think most of all, Heidi, just as we are today, trying to figure out how something like this could have conceivably happened. This, in a way, seems to exceed the worst-case scenario that a person could ever come up with on the worst imaginable terrorist attack.
And the irony is that they apparently put a counter-terrorist expert in the World Trade Center just a few weeks ago to try to figure out certain ways to prevent something that happened like in 1993.
Right.
This is something that nobody could have foreseen.
Nobody foresaw it, and apparently there was no early word at all that such a thing was going to happen.
And how do you prevent something like this from happening when somebody is going to crash a jet directly into a building? It's just unbelievable.
All right, Heidi, ground footage now from Washington. As we've been telling you, Washington has also come under attack. An injured police officer there. This is probably near the Pentagon, which, as we said, was struck by a plane and is currently burning. Also, a car bomb went off near the State Department. Don't know exactly what the location of these pictures are, but you can see that Washington is in virtual chaos as well.
Let's go back to Sukanya, Christian, on the street right now and see what she's found out there. Sukanya.
Can you just introduce yourself to us? You're one of the witnesses that saw this.
Yeah, my name is John Stewart.
John, can you tell us what you saw? You said you saw the whole building collapse.
Absolutely, yeah. I worked down in the Grace building on 6th Avenue and 42nd Street, and we had a clear view of everything that happened. Our window looks out all of downtown Manhattan, and we saw the second plane come in and the flames.
What went through your mind at that point when you saw the flames shooting from the first tower and then you saw the plane hit the second tower?
Just praying to God that everyone was okay and got out of there in time.
Mr. Kanye, let me interrupt you for just a second.
Sure, go ahead.
There. We want to bring folks up to date on the latest scenario in Washington. We are hearing reports that a plane, one of the planes that will not identify itself, a commercial airliner, is circling Dulles Airport in Washington under the eye of military jets, which are apparently trying to figure out what its destination, what its intentions are. All of Washington right now completely on pins and needles as we wait to see what the fate of this mystery airliner is going to be.
And we had heard actually that there are several planes that right now are unaccounted for. This apparently is just one.
If you want to try to put together some sort of scenario here, it appears that a coordinated effort to hijack numerous planes, I guess mostly across the northeastern part of the country, has taken place with the intention to crash them in a suicide fashion into America's most public buildings. The sun virtually obscured in lower Manhattan. Consider, everyone, that it's a bright, cloudless, crystal clear day outside, and that is what we're seeing in lower Manhattan.
It looks like midnight. And when we have more ground footage now of the scene. This is shot earlier in the day. You can see the chaos and the panic and people trying to figure out what's going on.
We're certainly not sure. We're not sure at what point in the events this videotape was shot, but you could think, I guess, that when the buildings were in imminent danger of collapse, that everyone's object was just to get as far away as they can from those buildings. I actually recognize some other local news reporters in town here right there, obviously very close to the action and feeling the fear the same as everyone else.
We have a media advisory right now that Navy bases have gone to a heightened state of security because of the recent because of what's happened here in New York and in Washington. Media are advised to stay clear of Navy piers and Navy ships in Connecticut, Maine, New Hampshire, New Jersey, and New York. Also, because of equipment problems in lower Manhattan, electric service between West Street and the Hudson River south of Chambers Street has been suspended. Gas and steam service in that area has also been interrupted. Con Edison crews are working closely with all emergency personnel. You really can't move right now in the city. You can't get in or out. Everything has been suspended. Transportation, public transportation, the trains, the bridges, the subways.
We should probably mention once again at this point, Kaidi, that the primary election, which is being held today, has been postponed. Voting has ended for the day. I don't know if that means that they will start all over again at some point down the line. Obviously, that's not the city's top concern right now.
There might be a tendency because you're looking at this on your television screen at home, to go out and get into the area and take a closer look. Don't. They're all saying, please, stay in your home where you're safe, and don't try to get near the scene.
You can't get anywhere.
No.
As you said, for just yourself to get here from your home in the Chelsea area, you basically had to hitch a ride.
I did hitch a ride.
To bum a ride from a passerby.
And then we hardly moved at all, which
Right.
it was very, very difficult. The people were actually in the street, on 6th Avenue, in the street, looking at what was going on behind.
Because you have a shot down the corridor of
Directly.
6th Avenue, which takes you directly up to the World Trade Center when it was still standing.
And as I said before, and I turned around, I saw with my own eyes the second tower come down. And the gasps of horror and dismay that people were expressing on the street was mind-boggling.
Well, people were comparing this to the same sort of... There's another view of the second plane hitting... that was the second plane hitting Tower 1. We'll give you a chance to see that again. The plane, that's clearly the best shot we've seen, showing both the size of the jetliner and the scope of the impact into the building, an impact strong enough to eventually knock that tower down.
We have a terrorism expert on the phone with us right now, Harvey Kushner. Harvey, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
What are your thoughts right now, please?
My thoughts are, listen, I've been involved in this for 35 years. I've studied every scenario. I've worked on the civil litigation with the World Trade Center case. I just got off the embassy bombing case in, where our embassies were bombed. I've worked with the victims from Pan Am 103 through terrorist attacks in Israel. Point is, this is off the map. This is something that we're living through a state of history now. I don't know what's going to happen with this. When you think about the psychological effect this is going to have on Americans, on New Yorkers, on law enforcement, when you think about what the United States is going to have to do in terms of a response, both possibly militarily, in terms of what protocols we're going to need to develop to keep our cities safe, I mean, it's monumental. Anybody at this point in time tell you that they have an answer is lying to you. This is something that, the best city in the world with planning, and I could tell you New York City had the best planning for this type of event, is
There was no way to prevent
impossible.
something like this.
No, and this just tells us that we live in a bad neighborhood. The neighborhood is not just away, 4,000 miles, 10,000 miles. The neighborhood is right here, and it's the symbol of the United States that was just destroyed.
Looking again at the second tower, the second airplane hitting Tower 1. Dr. Kushner, can we begin at this point to start thinking about who might have done this? What are your thoughts?
Well, coming off of the embassy bombing trial, I sat through testimony upon testimony and secret witness involving the conspiracy, the worldwide conspiracy of Osama bin Laden. And they talked about how he was able to engineer, and his operatives were able to engineer the bombing of the East African embassies. So one just goes one step further now when one sees this and says, well, this is an individual who has openly challenged the United States, who has put together an attack such as this against the United States' interest. And I was warned, I remember the day that the convictions came in, they threatened the United States that if we would execute Mr. Awali and Mr. Mohammed, that something like this would occur. And we've lived through, in the past year, we lived through constant upgrades of possibilities against American targets outside the United States. But here we have something right inside the United States. I mean, this is like nothing even the wildest screenwriter would ever conjure up.
It's off the map, as you said.
It's off the map, and the type of technology, the type of intelligence, the money that went into this to be able to fly a hijacked plane, and I'm assuming it was, into a building in New York is just
a series of hijacked planes.
Yes. This is. But by the way, I should tell your listening audience out there should understand that this has been tried before. Before the World Trade Center bombing in '93, Ramzi Youssef, who was the mastermind of the World Trade Center bombing, planned on hijacking 11 wide-body planes. He succeeded in hijacking one going to Hawaii that blew up and killed, I believe, one passenger. But his plot at that time, which he called, I believe, something like Bochinko, was to do something like this. But I could tell you, I've taken part in tabletop exercises and risk assessments, both here and in Hong Kong and in Washington, and this was not on anybody's radar screen.
Well, Dr. Kushner, just to reinforce what you just said, I have a quote here from Chris Yates, an aviation expert at Jane's Transport in London. He says, "This is perhaps the most audacious terrorist attack that's ever taken place in the world. It takes a logistics operation from a terror group involved that is second to none. Only a very small handful of terror groups is on that list. I would name at the top of the list, as you did, Osama bin Laden." But given that, Dr. Kushner, and the incredible amount of intelligence resources and efforts that have gone into this, how could such a thing be pulled off without a hint that it was coming?
Well, that's just it, because, there might have been hints. We had hints that we ratcheted up security after the USS Cole was attacked. We knew just 2 days ago a directive came out by the United States government warning Americans in Japan and North Korea of the possibility of an upcoming event. We warned Americans in the Philippines that Osama bin Laden was in that area. The point is, it can be pulled off because the very people who were involved in this type of act are here inside the United States. They're here, they have ability to communicate with each other, and they have the wherewithal to do something like this. And, understand this. It's mind-boggling to think that when you hijack a plane, it's difficult enough to have that plane fly in a certain direction or to do something. this plane was not only one, but I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, there were two.
Hitting the individual towers.
Dr.
Yes.
Kushner, we
Yes.
just got word that there's an unidentified van that they're investigating right now that's parked near the Israeli consulate.
Yeah.
Do you have any comment on that? Do you know anything
Well,
about
obviously, you know, New York is going to be in a heightened alert for anything that looks suspicious, and clearly there possibly would be that type of relationship between the events that are going on in the Middle East, because Osama bin Laden in the last couple of months has ratcheted up his interest in that region of the world as well. And so that is possibly a package. Understand this, that whenever you have a tragedy such as this, and the proportions of this, as I said, are off the map, you're going to have people calling up that they see something suspicious. You're going to have somebody seeing something. You'll have somebody even making a call that there's a bomb placed, you know, the copycat type of thing. So we don't want to cause any panic.
All right, Dr. Kushner, let me interrupt and just stay with us, please. American Airlines, we're now getting some idea of the death toll, at least on the airplanes. American Airlines is confirming it has lost 2 of its aircraft. Now, I don't know if we're talking about the 2 that hit the tower. One of them was known to be American Airlines. I don't know about the other one. Of course, a plane has crashed at the Pentagon as well. Regardless, American Airlines is saying it has lost 2 of its aircraft with a total of 156 people on board.
And of course, there was also that plane in Pennsylvania that was believed to be a Boeing 747 that crashed.
Here comes the second plane to the second tower. Unbelievable.
Another view of that.
So you would think, Dr. Kushner, if we're watching this, the hijackers must have had some ability in piloting planes.
Yes, absolutely. They knew the flight pattern. They knew exactly where it was going, and they would have had to have, I believe, more than one person. You know, quite frankly, pilots. I don't want to. I don't want to say this without having any evidence, but you know, we've always heard about a pilot who has tried to avoid crashing his plane into a populated area. You know, in something like this, I would imagine a pilot fearing death might have taken the plane down, possibly not at the trade tower. So to be able to engineer it, to pinpoint that this is a package delivery, just like a suicide bomber. When you think about a suicide bomber who walks right into an area, blows himself up, this is a perfect guided missile. Well, in this sense, the engineering of this guided missile was just astronomical. You know, it leads me to believe that not only is Osama bin Laden, I would put him on my short list, but I would go further to say that there would probably be some state sponsorship as well involved.
From Libya, Iran?
You got it. Libya, Iran, Iraq, Sudan, Afghanistan, absolutely.
Well, that begs the question, which you sort of raised at the beginning of our conversation here. Where do you begin to think about retaliation, military response? This is something the U.S. just has to respond to, obviously.
We're going to have to, and you know, we need to pray that we're going to be right. But this is something, you know. When you have an event such as the World Trade Center in '93, and you have the Oklahoma City, they were horrible. They were horrific acts, and they played upon the American psyche, but they weren't widespread. You look at this. This is a widespread. It's an act of war. When the symbols of American capitalism of the United States crumble in front of your eyes, where people are watching it. I mean, this is. I cannot tell you what this is going to do to post-traumatic shock syndrome. I mean,
it's going to change the way we live our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I hate to say this because I fear this day, but you always fear that there'll be draconian measures put in place after something. You know, this is monumental. I mean, the security that's going to be put in place now is going to be something that's going to, in some way, impact on our freedom of access in the world's largest city. You know, let me tell you this. Back in '96, '97, when I got involved in the civil litigation against the Port Authority for not doing due diligence, I read reports that the Port Authority was warned that they shouldn't allow the public to park vehicles in the garages underneath the building. And that's how the case was won, that they were warned, they didn't do this. But how do you protect against something like this from the air corridor? I mean, this is monumental. I mean, this is, people wake up in the middle of the night with a nightmare of something like this happening. And,
this is worse.
Quite frankly, I pinched myself earlier saying, could this happen in the United States?
Well, we're doing the same.
We've all been doing that today.
It did.
Stand by, please, Dr. Kushner.
And stay with us, please. We're going to go right now to Larry Hoff, our reporter down in Lower East Side, and find out what he's doing there. Larry, what's going on? Larry, can you hear me?
And it's Larry Hoff live from the side of City Hall here. We're just south of Chambers Street, and you're looking at the scene. Let me set the stage for you this morning. You're looking at the dust and ash billowing from where the trade towers used to stand here. This seems to be the staging area for the fire department. We've seen hundreds of firefighters walking into the area as commuters and workers are making their way out from Broadway and down towards the financial district. By the thousands, people have been parading by foot over the Brooklyn Bridge. We're hearing a number of large booms coming from that area. We can only guess what is going on. Right on the edge here, when the winds change, the ash and dust will be coming our way. We have these respirators ready for us. But you can see the giant clouds coming out of the region. And we're seeing just dazed people walking by, many covered in ash. Where did Ruby go? Ruby, come over here, please. And John Fine, come and join us, please. John's in the live truck. Come and join us. Ruby, you're from?
New Jersey.
I know. Now, I know this is going to be difficult. You were on Broadway Street.
Yeah, I was on Broadway.
This is after the jets had crashed into the towers. What happened?
Well, I was just a group of people. A lot of people were just standing there watching the fire. And then all of a sudden, the buildings start dropping. And it just went.
What'd you do?
Everybody started running because you could see the black. I guess that's from the debris and everything coming towards you. And at one point, it just hit us, and I just closed my eyes and closed my mouth and just hoped. It was like an avalanche being buried alive.
How'd you get out of there?
I just waited until I could see a little.
Ruby, take your respirator. What's your last name?
Corner.
Now tell everybody, where's your hometown?
I'm Bloomfield.
Tell everybody you're all right.
Oh, I'm fine.
I know this is really tough. Let's just hold on. John, come here. So what happened to you? John Fine with our crew. Now, John was really at the top. I know it's difficult, but if you can.
All right. There was what looked like a third plane. I thought there was a terrible noise. Sounded like a plane very low. Then there was the explosion. And again, like the lady said, an avalanche of smoke and debris came up the canyons, up the side streets.
You were on Broadway?
I was out by Broadway, and I guess Fulton. I had been backed up to Broadway. Started running, had some lady with me. We got covered, completely covered with the debris and smoke. We ducked into a vestibule. We waited. It was an outside vestibule. We waited. Couldn't wait no longer. Pulled my shirt up, grabbed the lady. We started going, turned the light on the camera, started going. We found the city bus. Some people behind me. We got in the bus. We closed the door. We waited. Got a little brighter out. That's when we decided it was time to make the move. And got out and started walking around.
Was it just complete darkness and chaos?
Total darkness. It was like being in nighttime. We were totally covered with whatever this stuff was coming down. Totally covered, Larry. Larry, this was a rough one.
I know, John.
I'm okay, Mom.
Okay. Tell your family.
We're all okay. We're okay. We're okay.
Come over here. Your name?
Jeff Valenti.
Jeff, you were walking down from the north coming south.
Coming down.
Could see the trade towers. And you heard jets coming?
We heard jets. Actually, I was working at 388 Greenwich Street on the 17th floor when we were looking at the first building when it was in flames. And we actually seen the plane circle around and actually come on to the opposite side of the building and smash into the trade center. The event made us evacuate the building, and everybody just moved hysterically, like crying and trying to get out of the building. And we were walking, and all you see is just papers everywhere, neckties, and we seen actual people coming from the 110th floor with shirts on.
They were jumping. I mean, the building was on fire. Now, did you actually see the jet itself?
Yes.
And what type was it?
It was gray, to be honest with you. It was gray. It was like a 737, I think. It was approximately commercial jet. Absolutely. It was unbelievable to see. It was a big ball of flame.
Now, when you got down the streets, what did you think?
I thought maybe we were all devastated. We came down to the street, we were all looking, and all of a sudden, about maybe approximately 25 minutes later, the building collapsed. And then another 15, 20 minutes later, the other building collapsed. All the smoke came towards our building. Everybody started running in the opposite direction. It was mass hysteria.
Well, you guys, I think I'm talking to Jim and Kaidi. I know communications are very difficult down here. Again, let's look at the ash. You can see as the emergency vehicles are moving down from City Hall. You can see the clouds coming up from just that. There is just so much dust and ash on the ground right now and flowing through the air. And the people are just streaming out of here by the thousands. It's a steady parade. And we're looking at, 11:35 right now. And it is a stunned city, needless to say, as we're trying to pick up the pieces and put together what has occurred. We'll keep on the ground here for you. I'll send it back to you all.
Have some information now. There are a lot of schools down in that area, and I can just imagine what the parents of those students who went to school all happy and full of vigor, first week of school, all ready to sit down and learn, and what they must be feeling and thinking right now. Here are a few updates on what is happening at some of those schools. PS 89 and PS 234. PS 89.